Over centuries of conflict involving the British, there's been a Caribbean contribution fighting either in or with the UK Armed Forces. West Indians, who've spent generations fighting for equality, have stepped up in their thousands to fight with Britain in world wars and beyond.
The motherland called and we answered. Throughout history we've seen the contributions, or perhaps we haven't seen as many of the contributions that West Indians have made. Of those many tens of thousands of service personnel, some perished. Unfortunately, they have been forgotten.
To remember and celebrate the role West Indians have played, we need to understand their journey.
West Indians first became involved in the British Armed Forces as early as the 1600s under Oliver Cromwell, who recruited between 2,000 and 3,000 in the region as part of the Army of the Western Design. He deliberately left his troops in Jamaica and turned them into colonists. So a lot of West Indians are the direct descendants of Oliver Cromwell's soldiers.
A generation later, English and French colonists fought against one another in the Caribbean, but bandsmen from the region appeared and fought in the UK's Household Division from as early as 1715, and by 1795 the British had founded the West Indian Regiment.
The angle there was that they felt that they were better suited to action in hotter climates and were more resilient to the illnesses that they would encounter there.
These troops were originally purchased, making the British Army the largest slave owner of the time.
This was mitigated, however, by the fact that once you were a serviceman, you were treated equally. And so there wasn't an issue of racism as such. And indeed, thanks to the Mutiny Act of 1807, emancipation happened within the armed forces long before it occurred in civilian life.
After service in the Battle of Waterloo and on HMS Victory at the Battle of Trafalgar, the First World War saw the West Indian Regiment deployed in Africa, again deemed well suited to the climate, while the War Office rejected thousands who wanted to travel from the Caribbean to help the UK fight.
They felt that it would upset the social structure of the Caribbean if they allowed black troops to fight white troops, even if those white troops were the enemy.
Eventually, the British West Indies Regiment was founded in 1915, with over 16,000 eager volunteers originally placed in labour roles before entering the front line.
And they were separated out, and the blacks were made to undertake pretty gruesome, demeaning tasks. And that resulted in something called the Taranto Mutiny, where a group railed against it, they rioted against it. And that is why the Caribbean's contribution to the First World War has largely been removed from history.
10,000 West Indians volunteered in the Second World War in over 40 British regiments, a willingness to contribute that's lasted through to modern conflicts, though acknowledgement for it hasn't always been returned. Senior figures past and present are looking to build on the progress being made.
And in 2012, when I was promoted to full colonel, there was recognition that, and I didn't realise this at the time, that I was the first ever black British Army colonel that the Armed Forces ever had. Now let's just hold that soundbite for a moment. That was 2012. At every stage of my career, there was recognition of being the only black face, the only ethnic minority in that particular rank. I think the British Army has actually changed. It's become more open to some of the diversity issues that the youngsters of today are facing. In my day, it wasn't really talked about. But today's environment, and with something like the Armed Forces Multicultural Network, there are a multitude of areas that people can go to for advice. There are a multitude of people that they can speak to if they are challenged in any way in their service career.
I'm a child of the Windrush generation. I'm first generation. My journey here to be a commander had to step over barriers, had to challenge some of the fortuitous glass ceilings. But we're getting through that. And as we stand on the shoulders of our seniors, part of my role is to help the young recruits and people developing within the armed forces stand on our shoulders.
Today, non-white ethnic minorities make up around 12% of British regulars, and UK Defence is now taking active measures to engage with the Caribbean community, who've contributed so much to its success. Tom Sables, BFBS Forces News.